Out here, this is Dr. Rex Archer. You remember him from the health department with Kansas City, Missouri. But we have a formal introduction for you, so just stand by for a second here.
Yeah, between now and the end of the year, you may be enjoying a lot of holiday treats.
Yeah, that's right. But one of the problems arises around these holiday times, and that is foodborne illnesses, commonly known as food poisoning. And here to talk about it is the aforementioned Mr. Dr. Rex Archer, formerly of the Kansas City Health Department. So welcome in. It's great to see you in person. Typically, we see you in the box over the last couple of years, so it's great to have you in person, Dr. Archer.
Yes, it is good.
Yeah.
And now that everybody can get immunized, it's safer too.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I guess how many cases of food poisoning do we see every year, and why do we see it this time of year?
So we see it throughout the year, but this time of the year it's even greater because of people preparing larger amounts of food, having food lay out longer because they don't put it away immediately. So we have a little over 50 million folks in this country that get at least one foodborne illness every year. Now the fortunate thing is that many of them are just sick for a day or two, don't end up needing to be hospitalized. But we have about 128, 130,000 hospitalizations because of food illnesses.
Well, that's a lot more than I thought.
Yeah, that's a really high number. So what are some of the best ways to reduce that risk?
So there's really four things to think about. One is constantly washing your hands when you're doing food preparation. The other is separating dangerous foods from other foods. So if you have a cutting board out and you're cutting raw chicken, then you've got to really wash that off before you then cut carrots or other things that aren't being cooked. The third is, are you heating the temperatures high enough for a long enough period of time to kill the bugs? And then the other is, are you cooling things down fast enough? And so I brought this to kind of demonstrate the difference.
Yeah, demonstrate some storage for us here. So tell us why you brought these specific storage containers in.
So as an example, sometimes there's a lot of food left over and you have a container like this size. Well, if you fill this with food, it doesn't often cool down fast enough in a refrigerator to be safe. So if you have several that are a little bit smaller, you'll notice it can cool faster in this situation. But actually, even if you stack three of these, the middle one won't cool very well. So sometimes it's good to put spacers or something so that the air can get through underneath.
How about that? I didn't even think about that before.
The other thing is your refrigerator even cool enough? And not everybody knows that. So I really recommend everybody to get a thermometer that they put in the refrigerator, because if you're not keeping it under 40 degrees, it's not going to cool fast enough. You want to push it down as close to 32 where things aren't actually freezing in the refrigerator but get cold much faster.
So somewhere between maybe 32 and 37 degrees would be the sweet spot, maybe?
Yeah, that would work well. The other thing, obviously, when you're cooking things, if you're not getting most foods up to about 165 degrees, you know, we lost 2 children back in Seattle at a Jack in the Box because the hamburger wasn't being cooked at a high enough temperature. So we now know we have to go up to 165 degrees. The other thing is, once you get it to that temperature, or even when people are microwaving frozen dinners, you need to let it set a while to make sure that the heat is evenly distributing, because there can be cold pockets where you don't kill the bacteria. So those are little tricks. One thing that I do often is, if I do have a bigger container like this one, I will put a tray that's metal with ice cubes on top of it in the refrigerator.
That'll work.
And then that way it cools it down faster.
That's a good tip.
The other thing is, notice this size container still will cool fairly well, but notice these actually have separation so that they cool even faster. So those are little tricks. And then the other thing during the holidays is, if you've got folks that aren't fully immunized and or are vulnerable, wearing your mask can protect people.
Dr. Archer, it is great to see you. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're at Kansas City University now, and you're doing a lot of teaching, but don't be a stranger. Come back and see us again sometime, all right?
Well, glad to do that.
All right, Dr. Rex Archer from Kansas City University. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Pat?